I think it's a beautiful Congress. It's really a great thing that it happens in the place where philosophy was born. I'm also very happy that it happens in Greece because presently Greece is in great crisis. But we must not forget that Greece is the country where reason was born. I still pray on the Acropolis. On the other hand, this Congress shows that philosophy has become global, mondial. It's everywhere. And it's a good thing in itself because it means that many more people have access to abstract matters. On the other hand, we have to think about how it's organized, and it can be sometimes a bit anarchical. And it seems to me that this extremely big market of ideas that we have in a Congress like here is at the same time a very good thing. But on the other hand, it seems to me that there are so many different kinds of philosophies that yes, it's a bit like on a marketplace. You eat some fruit, you eat another one, and sometimes you don't know what kind of fruit you want to eat. Science does a certain kind of explanation. Religion does a certain kind of explanation. But we want to have some kind of explanation which comes from our common sense and our natural resources of reason. So I take philosophy as a furtherance. So it uses common sense, but it goes over common sense. It is critical of common sense, and it analyzes our common beliefs. So analytic philosophy is a philosophy which is a descendant of Greek philosophy in Aristotle and Plato. I mean, these people were trying to define their concepts. They're trying to find the basic principles of the world and of knowledge.
What are the common things and the main differences in your way of thinking?
The main common things are the very problems of philosophy themselves. I mean, I believe that philosophy, in spite of the fact that you have philosophy in China, you have philosophy in India and in many parts of the world, I believe that more or less, basically, philosophy has been invented by the Greeks 5 centuries before Christ. And there is a certain style and a certain series of questions. So the problems, the questions are just the same. I mean, I believe that they are kind of eternal. I mean, you find them from one period to another period. I mean, there are, of course, a lot of changes from ancient times to medieval to modern and to contemporary times, but there is a sort of basic set, a basic package of problems, such as what is knowledge, what is being, can we solve metaphysical problems such as nature of God, basic principles of being. These problems have not really changed, but of course what has changed during the century are the methods. Philosophers do not deal with this, they deal with the same issues, but in a different way. I mean, if you want, it's like food. I mean, you can have Italian or Greek food, but you can have it differently from different kinds of restaurants. So my restaurant is an analytic restaurant. I don't know whether the food is good in my restaurant, but at least you know what you eat. If we want to make progress, we first have to be clear about what our principles are, what our presuppositions are, and we have to be able to argue, not just to throw to the face of your opponent some ideas. So philosophy is a game of giving reasons. And for giving reason, these reasons must not be only subjective, they must be objective. So the progress comes when people try to argue. But I'm not sure that when you argue, when you discuss with others, even with people who have very different world views than yours, I'm not sure that we can reach a compromise or a consensus. So we try to be peaceful in arguing, and we try to make at least as clear as possible our disagreement. There are people who are skeptics. There are people who are relativists. These people want to say, I mean, this goes back from Greek philosophy, of course. I mean, these people say there is no truth, or they say there is no objective truth because everyone, as Protagoras said, man is a measure of all things. Now, I think that there is objective truth, and it can be gained on a number of issues. So truth, if it is to be truth, is objective, it is absolute, it's not vague, which doesn't mean that there are no domains where where truth is difficult to apply, for instance, aesthetics. There are some philosophers today who still believe that there is something like the beautiful and have this kind of Platonic idea. When we want to say what knowledge is, science is, I believe, the best model that we have. But it doesn't mean that this model has to be applied everywhere. I need science to run my car. I don't need science to make my decisions in everyday life. Philosophy today is very specialized, and as one philosopher, a famous philosopher said, we do not need to have a system. I mean, philosophers of the past had an opinion about everything. They had an opinion about morals, they had an opinion about knowledge, about being, about the beautiful. I have some ideas about all these things. I have some ideas about life, and but sometimes I feel that it's not the business of the philosopher to deal with issues, such big issues as life and death. I believe, for instance, that if you want to know something about life or death, you better read novels, you better read literature, not necessarily the philosophers. I mean, there are certain points which are very clear, which have been made by philosophers about death. For instance, Epicurus said that death doesn't matter because before that we don't know what it is, and after when it comes we don't know either because we aren't there.
Isn't wisdom the ultimate target of each philosopher?
No, I don't think so. I think we have to take care about what it is to be wise, and we have also to take care about whether there is a difference between. I mean, this is also another Aristotelian idea. I mean, there is practical wisdom and there is theoretical wisdom. I think that like Aristotle, that the two go together. And for me, the supreme aim is truth. It's to try to have, as a famous American philosopher Wilfrid Sellers said, to have a view about how things hang together in the most general sense. It's a kind of humanistic way of saying things. So it's not literature, it's not politics, it's not art. It's a distinctive way of trying to approach reason. For myself, I am, like many others, believing that a believer in democracy. But of course, this is a very confused ideal today. I mean, many people are Democrats, but we don't know what it is. So what we can expect from the philosopher is some sort of clarification of what exactly today, for instance, a theory of democracy has to be. Then afterwards, taking decisions, taking the difficult issues. I don't think it's a work of philosophers. The philosopher Montaigne, the French, the father of French philosophy, said that philosophy, to philosophize, is to learn how to die. Well, this is a kind of wisdom, okay, but I'm not sure that philosophers know better how to die than cats, dogs, and other men.
Do we see philosophy in the political decisions?
I think we have to be extremely modest. As I just said, the idea that philosophers could be advisors to politicians doesn't seem to me a very good idea. I mean, even, for instance, in France we have had 2 times we had ministers who were philosophers. Unfortunately, their politics, even for education, was not very good. What the philosophers can do is to give guidelines. I mean, certainly, for instance, in the present situation in Europe, what we can expect from political philosophers is to give us some better ideas about what Europe should be. Maybe at the time of Plato, when he tried to go to Sicily to be an advisor to the tyrants there, maybe at that time a philosopher could be an advisor to the prince. Maybe in the Renaissance in Italy, some philosophers like Machiavelli could be advisors or say things.
Do we use reason?
No, we do not use reason. A lot of psychological studies, a lot of everyday experience shows that we actually do not use reasons. When we deliberate, we have biases, we are very irrational, we don't master very well the principles of logic or the principle of probability. So reason comes not at the first order. It doesn't come with your first impulsion of thinking. It comes in the second impulsion. But we can learn to use reason. But that demands education, that demands very often something other than the kind of extremely quick and extremely anarchical spread of information that we have today. One of the tasks of the philosopher, it seems to me, would be, with respect to the media, would be to try to show all the problems that exist with the spread of knowledge that goes with the media. Many people spread information, but they call this information knowledge. But it's not knowledge. I mean, what you can find on the internet is not knowledge. It's called the web of knowledge. But very often it's just spread of information without justification.
So this spread of information leads to misinterpretations of things, to the lack of real knowledge?
It does, and also there is also a false idea of democracy. I mean, think, for instance, of those social networks where people say, I like, when there is something which they find, which they like, their cat, their dog, their favorite philosopher. That sounds to me completely crazy. What we have to learn is to master how to acquire the information. In the classical learning, that was reading of books, but today, of course, the book has disappeared. I mean, you have web pages, the books are spread all over, and it seems to me that there are many false beliefs which are created by this style of learning. But reason and knowledge come at another level. You have to be reflexive. You have to sort of think twice.